Yes. Here we are. It is the Worthy podcast. It is, what's his date?
September 30th.
September 30th, Monday evening, yes.
Probably call it Monday night.
Monday night. I'm here with the VP of Research and EJ the Savage.
That'd be me.
And we just, wanted to take a quick moment to discuss some sad news that came out today, or some frustrating news that came out today, rather. About the gentleman, Botham Jean, in Texas, that he was having a relationship with an officer, female officer. Maybe it fell apart. I want to say it fell apart. She was kind of still attached to him. Anyway, she ended up killing him in his own house. And her original story was she walked into the wrong home, and it was dark, and she had been drinking, etc. And so today we got something that came out. We saw something that came out on the news that said that they're potentially allowing the jury to consider a stand your ground type law for what took place. And I think we were all kind of taken back and, confused when that came out, for lack of better words. You guys, how you guys feel about it?
Go ahead, VP.
I think it's just complete bullshit, When these stand your ground laws were first introduced throughout the country, they were sold to us as, it was too hard to get a self-defense defense, I guess, in the event you had to kill someone or use force against someone to stop them from using force against you. And, they were sold to us as people, having to protect their home and things like that. But in a lot of these cases where we see these stand your ground defenses used, whether it's Botham Jean or John, Trayvon Martin, etc., we see these things used with unarmed people who are facing folks who are armed. And so my question is always, I understand that person may be standing their ground, although I think that the law as well as the defense itself is complete bullshit. But when does the law take into account that I'm standing my ground, right? Because I'm at home, minding my business. Someone comes in my home and if I try to defend myself, the law is essentially saying because I attack this person, they no longer have a duty to retreat. They can use all force necessary, including killing the person, to stop the situation from happening when that person is the aggressor. They're in the wrong from the beginning. And so I just think that it's completely fucked up. And it essentially just allows the legal killing of unarmed people in general and unarmed black people specifically.
I agree 100%. Looking at this, if with a lot of ignorance, because I don't know the inside details. I don't have the docket. I don't have the transcriptions. But we have body cam footage from officers that arrived on the scene where she's saying, I thought this was my apartment. First and foremost, as a sworn officer of the law, you did not verify that this was your apartment. Either you were too stupid to realize it wasn't your apartment. You were intoxicated, which even is an even more indictment that you're on the job or coming off the job, and you have issued firearm that you're walking around with, and you're drunk. and you go into this apartment and you kill a citizen. And not only that, the moments after you kill the citizen, instead of seemingly radioing for emergency services, it seems as though you're telling your fellow officers that there's a problem. You don't know what to do. So it just seems all the way bad in that sense. And then the stand your ground aspect. I just don't understand how this is applicable in the sense that she's not being attacked. She's not in a position where she needs to immediately defend herself, life or death situation. Even if in the instance that it was her apartment and this random guy was in there, it wasn't your apartment. You didn't do the due diligence to figure out that it wasn't your apartment. You essentially went into an innocent person's home and murdered them in cold blood on their own sofa. What kind of nation do we have, and what kind of people are we that we find this acceptable that an officer, sworn officer of the Dallas Police Department, can break into another person's home negligently? Whether it was negligently, whether it was on purpose, we don't know for sure because she'll never tell. But what kind of country do we live in? We think it's okay and actually take the side of the killer in this instance. It's disgusting. And it furthermore disgusts me that the media and their role in this and the imagery that they're playing to dehumanize this guy. I just checked about maybe 10 media outlets to try to find more information. And while she is the hot topic, you would think that while they reference her name, they would also reference his name. And I just want to say quickly, when we hear people talk about the victims of these crimes and they say their name, I think it's very relevant because if you don't say their name, you don't remember that this person was innocent and that they existed. They become just the neighbor, just the guy. And then it becomes focused on the weak and meek manner of the perpetrator and the excuses to come. And it's disgusting. That's all I got. I am pissed.
Yeah, that's a great point, EJ. I don't know if Steve was trying to get in there. I think he might be muted. But yeah, that's a great point, what you were saying about not saying the name and how it, dehumanizes them. And another thing that the media does, and they try to do it in this situation, but from what I can remember from when this thing first happened, it seemed like a lot of people in our community worked hard to not let that happen. And it's when someone in these type of situations dies and you start seeing photos of them, he posed on Facebook with a gun, or he got arrested 12 years ago, and bullshit like that. And that happened in this case where they tried to say when they ran his toxicology report that there was marijuana in his system, and people were like, so fucking what? Just because there's marijuana in your system doesn't mean that somebody has the right to come into your home and fucking kill you, So that's a great point where you talked about not mentioning their name. And I think that shit is intentional because, like you said, it dehumanizes them and they're no longer the victim of this crime. It seems like it's more of what can we do to legally finesse this thing to allow the perpetrator of the crime to go scot-free.
Right. So, just reading up on it a little bit, it indicates specifically, and I'm just going to read it verbatim. A person may have a duty to retreat to avoid violence if one can reasonably do so. The Castle Doctrine lessens the duty to retreat when an individual is assaulted within one's own home. You're going to have to tell me if it's not her home, right? Are they just going to give her the benefit of the doubt and say because she said that she thought she was in her house that she was justified in the force that she took? Deadly force at that?
Yeah.
And not only that, you mentioned the key point. the duty to retreat, the ability to retreat. And that was the issue with Trayvon so long ago, when we knew this was bullshit, when George Zimmerman was the antagonizer. And he was in a fucking open courtyard where he could have ran the fuck away. You know, this chick busts in this apartment and this guy is on the couch. He's in a recliner, feet away from her. If you really were that threatened as a trained sworn officer of a police department, a militarized police department, tactical training, you have the ability to reach back, open your door, get some light in the apartment, identify who you are, ask the perpetrator to identify who they are. Sure, we can argue in a split second. She may have thought there might have been a gun. We don't know. But I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And not only that, to Steve's point, how do you get in this door that you don't, even if you opened the door and it was open, and let's just say you thought somebody broke in, at no point do you identify yourself as PD. At no point do you tactically shine a flashlight into the home. At no point do you radio for backup. At no point do you just stop to think that maybe this isn't my house. I don't know. Like, I just don't understand it.
Right.
And not just that, EJ, the thing that has always bothered me about this situation, and I think it's maybe just because I have a military background, and not that I did this type of stuff, you know, ground pounding, kicking in doors type shit in the military. However, you know, I did have some training, right? And I feel like folks who do this type of work, you know, whether it is in a military, in a combat theater, or a police officer, you go through training, you do things like threat assessments and things like that. So when she comes in the house, let's give the benefit of the doubt for a moment and say she does in fact believe that she's in her apartment and there is someone in the apartment. Why not do like EJ said and back out, identify yourself as a police officer, show me your hands, you know, all that kind of stuff, instead of just going in, you know, guns blazing. Thinking about this situation with this officer made me think about the Bin Laden raid, right? And granted, these guys are Navy SEALs. They have some of the best training in the world, right? But these guys go into this home in the middle of the night, and there's gunfire, all kind of shit happening, and there are women and children there, and they kill Bin Laden, his bodyguard, and his son. That's it. No women died, no kids died, or whatever, even though it was pure chaos that night. And maybe not chaos from the Navy SEAL side, but from the people who they were targeting there, right? It's not like they just gave up. You see what I'm saying? And so why can't this police officer go in there with that kind of efficiency to identify herself as a cop and, you know, assess the situation, see if this guy is a threat or not, and then take things from there? But it almost seems like she came in and said, oh shit, there's a dude, bang, bang, he's dead, you know? So that's the shit that's always disturbed me about this particular case.
Right. And going back to just the general law in general, the one part about it, I guess the good part about it is that it cannot be used in a civil suit. So if for some reason they try to let her get off on, you know, any federal charges, the family can, you know, they're going to get her. You know what I mean? There's no way that you can sit down and tell somebody, hey, I thought this was my house. And to your point, VP, if you have any type of training, the training is going to tell you that you're supposed to retreat and you're supposed to wait for backup. You know what I mean? You don't know what the threat actually is. There could be 3-4 people armed in the house,
exactly,
you know, waiting for you, and you're going to walk in that way. And then I remember what I was going to say about EJ's point, where, you know, she said she thought he had a gun, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't matter what she thought, because when they went through and they looked, there was no weapons in the house besides steak knives. Mm-hmm. So they found no gun, right? So it doesn't matter what you thought you saw at night in the dark, number one. Number two, she was pissed drunk, right? There's neighbors that say they heard her, kind of banging and yelling. So I don't understand how we just got to hope that, the justice system holds up, and, the individuals in the jury aren't as fucking oblivious as, what took place in Trayvon Martin and other cases that we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, and going again, because there are neighbors that are testifying to what they heard. Many of these apartment complexes, are structured the same. The doors are very similar.
Right.
I'm having the hardest time understanding how it is that she got in the apartment. I'm wondering, one, did he leave the door open? Two, I'm wondering, one, did he leave the door open? Two, if neighbors heard banging, was there an instance in time? Was there a moment in time where this brother got up, identified who she was, and then opened the door? And then was he then forced to then sit down and be shot? She was drunk. And let's just say, if he did leave the door open and she got in there, at what point would a trained officer who is in the right state of mind not stop and say, hey, I locked my door when I left this house? Because these doors, most times when you close them, or they either swing behind you and they close, or you pull them closed and they automatically lock, right? Most times, let's just say, maybe not all the time, but you realize your door is open. At what time do you not think, hey, did I leave my door open? It's pitch black in here. Light is right to the left, or the right, rather. The light is right to your right, entering the house. Let me turn on the light. And then because I don't remember them saying for sure, I don't remember because I don't remember all of the facts. But if they do have a connection, right, at what point do you, if this was such a blind mistake, how do you directly mistakenly go to this apartment in which you have a connection to this dude? There's plenty of apartments that you could probably go to. So unless you're telling me, and I don't know the floor plan for where they live, but unless you're telling me that his apartment is literally identically in the same place that hers is, in a similar floor, that sounds like some bullshit too.
Right. And you know what? You got a point, EJ. Really, you don't know. And it's like we've said, like I said to you about, Trayvon Martin. There's only one side of the story to hear, right? You don't have another side of the story. With Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman, you had, the so-called witnesses that nobody saw anything, except for being able to vouch for what Zimmerman said. And in this case, she's the only person that can tell what happened inside the apartment, right? The people that lived around, the neighbors can say what they heard. But, inside the apartment, who knows? She could have walked in and he was there. They got into an argument because it was said that they had been seen together having, a relationship in the past. So who knows? She walks in there. Maybe she had a key. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And see, that's the point that you just made, Steve, is my problem with the stand your ground laws, right? And in the case of Trayvon Martin, right, although we don't have both sides, we have a lot from the Zimmerman side, right? Because Zimmerman's on the phone with 911, and he's telling them, "Hey, I see this guy. He's walking around. I'm tired of people, breaking into homes in the neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera." The cops say, literally, "Are you following him?" And he says, "Yeah." And they say, "We don't need you to do that." And
Stop
then he
doing that.
Yeah, and
he's advised, stop doing that.
And then he continues, right? And then at whatever point, he ends up getting out of his car and confronting Trayvon Martin, right? Now, that's just Zimmerman's side. imagine the Trayvon side where you're this 15-year-old kid and somebody's following you at night, right? You don't know what the fuck is going on. You don't know if you're about to be kidnapped, fucking raped, whatever the fuck, right? And so, Trayvon swings on him, according to Zimmerman. And I'm like, at what point was Trayvon not standing his ground? You see what I'm saying? Because I'm being followed by some guy. I'm a kid. I don't know what the fuck is going to happen. This guy just approaches me in the middle of the night. What the fuck am I supposed to do? You see what I'm saying?
The word go.
Right. And because of that, with these stand your ground laws, with not having a duty to retreat, because Zimmerman could have easily just said, hey, the kid is on, 3rd Street and Johnson Avenue or whatever the fuck. The cops would have showed up. Hey, we got a call, whatever. Maybe they ID him. Hey, I'm coming from my dad's house, da-da-da. And then maybe he goes on his way. I mean, this day and age, who knows the way, cops are shooting people and shit. But this kid more than likely would still be alive had Zimmerman not followed him, right? And the same shit here where, like we've already discussed, this chick comes in the house. She thinks it's her apartment. That's if you're giving her benefit of doubt. And she sees somebody and immediately goes fucking aggressive instead of trying to figure out what the fuck's going on, assess the situation, determine if the person is a threat. All those kind of things that she's more than likely trained to do seem like they just went out the window and she just straight went for blood.
And at the very least, you're coming off duty, you're intoxicated. At the very least, you're guilty from that incident. Like in the Trayvon Martin situation, Zimmerman was the aggressor from the word go. Mm-hmm. That 911 operator advised you as a civil servant, as a 911 operator, as an expert, as a professional, to back away and leave. So to your point, Steve, where it's like we don't have the other side of the story, it's clear and evident based on the facts that it wouldn't matter. It just wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter if they made it out alive. It would not matter because the judge and the jury already decided from the word go. Everything about this case is just it sucks. It flat out sucks. Like, again, I don't have the floor plans. I haven't really dug into the technicalities because clearly, a lot of this stuff is sealed. I'm not from there, haven't been there. But unless you're telling me that her floor, her apartment is in the same exact place as his is, I need to know, if it's not, how of all the apartments that could potentially be in the same place as hers is, that look exactly like hers, what would make her go to his apartment specifically? And I want to know, I just want to know how it all happened. I need to know the facts. I need to know the details. But this instance that they're allowing them to introduce the Castle Doctrine in this, it just man makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Yeah. And so apparently, if you guys are seeing, the comments, she stated that she yelled very loudly, for him to put his hands up. And the witnesses and neighbors went to the stand and stated that they never heard that. Right? So that kind of throws out, any form of her trying to say that she followed any type of procedure that she was taught as law enforcement. Right? Because if she didn't give him an opportunity to surrender himself, whether she thought she was in her home or not, then she's going against any of her training. Right?
Yep.
And Brother Harrison is saying the door was open, and they said the wet weather conditions can cause the door to stay open. Okay, possibly that's possible. But when she put her key in, it blinked red. Okay. There was no banging noise. She yelled very loudly for him to put his hands up.
So they had a key fob joint instead of like a regular key?
So it's like probably
like the hotels.
Yeah.
Like joint.
Oh man.
So I mean, and I mean at that point, either you intentionally did this, or once again, as a sworn officer off duty with your service pistol on and active, you were drunk. You noticed that there was a gentleman in your apartment. At some point, you're telling him to put his hands up. At no point was there any exchange where he said, "What are you doing? This is my apartment."
Mm-hmm.
He's in a recliner.
Right.
He's in a recliner.
Yeah.
And at that point, you have the ability, if you're claiming you have the ability to tell him to put his hands up, you have the ability now to back up and get out and exit. Request for backup. Take a defensive position. Say I'm an officer of the law. You got the upper hand.
Right.
Warning shots. I mean, it's ridiculous.
What kind of danger could she have felt she was in if he was sitting in a chair?
Yeah.
I mean, if he was, if it had been where he had gotten, I mean, to what you said, EJ, if he had met her at the door, came to the door, right? That's a different story. Even if he was standing up, coming towards her, that's a different story. That's something where she could say, I felt I was, in harm's way. He was approaching me. He was coming at me. He was, in an aggressive manner, which you would expect because to him, somebody just broke into his house, right? He didn't know initially that it was her, right? He hears somebody in his home. Maybe he turned around and then noticed her. No, we don't really know what all happened.
Give him the benefit of the doubt. Yeah.
But if he was standing up, for me, I know if somebody came into my place and I was walking, to go see who it was, I'm going to be walking pretty aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm going to be waiting in an area, because of course I know the blueprint of my home better than you would. But, it's just, there's no way she can say she felt that she was in any type of harm's way if he was sitting on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, too, if there is some prior history, just in the past, just in the conversation, just in the, hey, I know your name. At what point would you get that aggressive? If you've seen this guy before, if you interacted with this guy before, unless you're telling me there's a deeper and dark history here, where let's just say worst case scenario, let's smear him the worst we can. Let's say there has been DV. Let's say they've gotten into fist fights and she didn't want him there. Whatever. Who knows? We're just throwing shit against the wall. At what point, when you see dude leaning in a recliner, has to literally try to lean himself up to get up, do you not back out? Yeah. Do you not talk to him and say, get the fuck out? Do you not say, I'm going to call my squad? I'm going to do this? It's an officer of the law. This isn't just some person. This isn't just some nanny. Okay. We're in an equal opportunity line of world where women are more, if not just as better or more capable than the male officers on the force. She's highly trained. We're not talking about this dude trying to snatch somebody's purse.
Right.
This is the last person you're supposed to be fucking with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's just what? He's just taking bullets just cause? Like, this is crazy to me, man. Shit don't make no sense.
Yeah.
Makes no goddamn sense, man. Shit is disgusting.
And beyond all of it, this is the reaction. The reaction that you're speaking of is the reaction that we had when the story came out, right? So
just taking bullets just cause?
Now we're talking more about the fact that they're giving them the opportunity to allow her to use the stand your ground. And all we have to hope as a people is that the jury gets it right? That they're not as naive or it's not a jury full of racists, right? Because this is just going to lead to more cases like it, because there's, the stand your ground is coming out left and right, and it's just getting worse. And to one thing that I tell you guys all the time, especially when we talk about, the Trayvon Martin thing, being a gun enthusiast and having, a concealed weapons license, I just hope that should it ever come about where I need to stand my ground, that I'm treated the same way as these white people.
Oh, the other thing that I forgot about that too, and to your point about you're standing your ground and being a gun owner, and me being one myself, the whole scenario here is, right, the whole different scenario is she came into his spot where the key card said you don't belong here.
Right.
Yeah.
And most situations, when you have these instances, the person is already in the home breaking in. So if anything, if this is the most applicable sense, he should have shot her.
Yeah.
This is the complete opposite. And this is a continuation to what Brother Stewart is saying in correlation to encounters with black people. This is always the narrative. Mike Brown, he charged me from 20, 30 feet away like a rhino, and I just shot him down. And Trayvon, he swung at me after I came at him. It's just like, Flando, I have a weapon. I'm trying to give it up to you. I'm trying to let you know. Man. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's only going to get worse. And, VP, myself, we just got to hope for the best in the future, because we have young minority men that are going to have to grow up in this world.
Yeah.
And, if it is the way it is now in 2019, how do you think it's going to be in 2029, 2039, right? When they're grown men, when they're getting to, the age of, their 20s or 30s, and, who knows what they're out there doing, just having a drink or having a relationship with a Caucasian officer, right?
Yep.
And that leading to them dying.
Yeah. What do you guys, I haven't gotten into all of the coverage of the aftermath, but like I said before with the media, and it really infuriated me. And I really think we really need to say the victim's name, because after a while, like VP was saying, they start to just say his neighbor, his neighbor, his neighbor. He then becomes, oh yeah, the guy that Geiger shot, right? The guy. He becomes the guy. We lose sight of what happened. We then get empathetic or sympathetic, for many of us, about the situation. We ignore what she did. We ignore that she was wrong from the word go. And so they're painting, I feel like the media is painting this narrative, when I've been searching his name throughout the entire internet, throughout the entire web, and everything that comes on in the first 20 seconds to the first 1 minute and 20 seconds, maybe throughout the entire video, no mention of his full name except in one video that I found. What are you guys thinking ultimately if you were to make a Hail Mary prediction? What do you think at minimum is going to happen?
Well, to answer your question directly, I think she's going to get off. Or if she doesn't eat the murder charge, maybe she picks up like a lesser charge, like manslaughter or something like that, right? But I think also what the issue is, EJ, to the point that you were making about not, using his name and things like that. If it was two civilians who shot each other, or one civilian killed another one, like in the case of Trayvon and George Zimmerman, right? You get in Zimmerman's account, and then you're hearing stuff from, Trayvon's people, right? Media's talking about different things, et cetera, et cetera. In this case, where it's a officer involved shooting, right? When a cop shoots somebody, or when a cop does anything, whether it's in the line of their duty or not, what happens is that there's this whole apparatus that basically springs into effect, right? And you have the police station themselves who are putting out, facts of what they say happened. And then the police station, or the police department, I should say, has their spokespeople who are speaking to this, and the police union, and, maybe the media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Whereas Botham Jean has nobody. He has to hope that, his family is being talked to, or, I mean, not he has to hope. I mean, he's dead, but you understand what I'm saying? But, maybe his people can get on the air and put their side of the story out there, or, say, well, hey, our attorney had an autopsy done and they found this, that, or the third that really disputes what the police is saying. But most of the times that's not the case. So all the information that you're getting is from the point of view of the perpetrator in this case, which was the cop. And that stuff, the information that they put out to the public, can help bias the public. And then, even though when people go into a jury selection, they say, yeah, I can be fair and I haven't heard much about it, et cetera, et cetera. But if they had some of this information that's fed to them through or from the police department, through the media, can then bias what they think when they're actually in the courtroom listening to the evidence.
Yeah, and I've seen things where his mom has spoken out, and family and friends, but I mean, clearly, we haven't been getting enough, and I think there is an element of apathy as well for our community, in a sense, because we really don't. I don't really, to be honest, and I mean, it all depends, I guess, in perspective to where you're linked and what your communities are, and who you subscribe to and who you talk to. But with the culmination of Trump, the election,
more Trump,
all of the shit that's going on, I don't really see that media, and we know what the national media is going to do, but I don't really see a lot from the civic organizations, the cultural organizations, the minority organizations. I don't even see this as a talking point. I don't even see this as a big thing right now. And I think largely too, when you had Mike Brown, the riots in Ferguson, had the city of Ferguson, the brothers and sisters of Ferguson, hadn't they took to the streets and really, rallied and did everything they did, good or bad, would we really have heard anything about him? Trayvon being a child, obviously invokes a lot of attention for the fact that he had two loving parents that lost a teenage son in this manner. And in this instance, while I know all of our networks are probably talking about it, I don't really feel as if our community, and I mean, it's always that thing, like, if you don't see something change, be the change. I just don't know that it's really on our radar right now. And I don't know what I don't know, man. I'm wondering what our black leaders who have the political clout. We just had the CBC here in DC, and it always amazes me how the Congressional Black Caucus always gathers in DC, and you see all of the events, all of the galas, all of the happy hours, all of the flash and everything. And then, I've been in there a couple of times, and I'll go into the parlor and I hear somebody dynamic speak, right? But then they're speaking to a room of hundreds of other people just like them, when minutes south or minutes to the west in Northwest DC or Southeast DC, there are people that really need to hear this message and get some help from you. We just had a Congressional Black Caucus. Revolt just had a panel on all of these things. I don't recall Botham Jean being a topic of discussion. And
I think
that saddens me.
I think we'll start to see, you might start to see it more now, to what you're saying, EJ. Not only from different leaders, but also from the friends and family, because I think going into it, people thought it was a cut and dry case, right? Mm-hmm. She walked into this man's house and killed him. End of story. There's no more to it, right? How much more do you have to tell me? She was in his house. He died. Right. So I think that's why people may not have taken that, taken the aggressive approach. But if, now that you're seeing them try to let this white woman off, I think now you'll start to see it. You'll start to see people discuss it more. You'll start to see the headlines. You'll start to see the media covering it. And even worse off is if she does beat it for some reason, or she gets off for some reason, like VP is saying, then you will definitely see it. It's going to cause a big problem without a doubt, because there's no way that you can allow that to go unpunished, without holding her accountable in some way, right? And by accountability, we gotta be looking for more than just, oh well, she lost her job, she's no longer on the force. You know what I mean? Like this man lost his life, his family, whether he had kids or not. Someone lost a loved one. Because she was careless, because she was drunk and didn't know how to control her emotions. And for that reason, she needs to be held accountable.
But looking at not Mike Brown, look at the Eric Gardner situation, and I agree with you 100% because we've seen this time and time and time again. Fortunately for the people in Ferguson, they immediately took to the streets. But even with the Eric Gardner situation, Pantangelo, I think it was his name, Pantangelo.
Yeah,
doesn't matter. Was still on the force. How many years later until de Blasio is running for mayor and people are like, wait a minute, this motherfucker still ain't fired? And you have no explanation, but yet you're running for president? The wheel didn't get greased until this dude put himself out there. And it's like, to your point, Steve, is like some shit is really gonna have to happen for people to really react and really care. And the sad part about it is, how many of these instances do we have to keep seeing until our first reaction is the reaction that needs to be the reaction consistently all the way through until it's all the way done? In 92, we had some shit like this where in the 90s where Rodney King was beaten. Thank God, he wasn't shot and killed. Nobody talks about Diallo shot 40-something times. It's like, what where are we even safe?
And we always talk about how fickle of a people we are, right?
Yeah.
This made the news, and it was under wraps for how long? Until she started trial. People talked about it for 2 or 3 weeks. You saw it on podcasts. You saw it on news outlets. You saw it on Instagram pictures. You saw it on Facebook pages, right? For 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks tops.
Yeah.
And then it got swept under a rug, and we started to look at something else because, like you said, EJ, there's so much out there for us as a people. We're fighting. We're fighting Trump. Who knows? Tomorrow there could be another killing, another police-related shooting, and it just, there's incident after incident after incident. And, so for the people that do try to keep up with it, there's so much that they're kind of overwhelmed. And then the others are just, there's people that are just fickle, right? And they'll follow what Facebook, that's the fad right now. That's what people are talking about. I have to make sure that, people know that I'm paying attention as well, and then, tomorrow they'll be talking about the MTV Movie Awards or some shit. Mm-hmm. It's just the way people are. And then the news does a great job of bringing it back up, because if they would have left it under wraps and it didn't get out there, if it wasn't for Twitter, if it wasn't for Jamel Hill, somebody that you wouldn't even expect, Soledad O'Brien putting that shit out there, who knows if it would have gotten to our community that this was the type of shit that they're trying to pull to get this lady off.
Yeah, no doubt, man.
I just want to say respect to anybody in Dallas and any organizations in Dallas that may be doing anything that we just don't know about, because we're not nationally known podcasts. But I just want to say, because I'm pretty sure that somebody's doing something out there that just hasn't reached our ears. But I am going to challenge myself some way, somehow, to kind of dedicate some energy to this brother and his murder, some kind of way.
Yeah. So yeah, I know we wanted to kind of keep it light tonight. I think we got the point across on that one.
Yep.
All right. So we'll let VP do his thing.
Or whatever.
All right, folks, we appreciate you rocking with us on this one. As always, we thank you for joining us, for taking some time out, making a choice to listen to us. We definitely appreciate it. And you guys don't know yet, but once you hear this is our first podcast that was streamed live on Facebook. So we definitely appreciate the people who are on the Castworthy Facebook page watching right now. Shout out to y'all. Definitely thanks for joining us, and stay tuned. We look forward to doing more of these. You can listen to us anywhere that you can find podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, www.spreaker.com, YouTube, etc. If you can get a podcast there, more than likely we are there. You can follow us on any of our social media at Castworthy. On Instagram, it's Castworthy_podcast. And, we'll see you on the next one. We appreciate you guys listening.